A reading from John chapter 15, verses 10 to 13. If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, and that your joy might be full. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
John McCrae in Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours who hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. We gather today to celebrate Veterans Day, to remember all the many millions of Americans, and indeed freedom-loving people around the world who left hearth and home, family and friends, and jobs and school to serve the cause of liberty and peace. Memorial Day, observed in May, honors our war dead. Veterans Day, officially observed with a moment of silence at the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, when the guns fell silent across Europe at the end of the Great War, has been a national holiday for almost a century and honors all those who answered the war trumpet's call in times of national crisis and peril. Until after World War II, the United States did not have a substantial standing professional army, relying instead on citizen soldiers to fight its wars. From the Minutemen and the Continental Line of the Revolution, the blue-coated Billy Yanks of the Civil War, the doughboys of World War I and the GIs of World War II, to the grunts and jarheads of our more recent conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. Citizen soldiers have borne the battle in times of war and peace. This noble ideal of the citizen who selflessly and virtuously puts aside his or her own cares for those of the nation is an ancient one. Long associated with classical Greek and Roman ideals of liberty and citizenship in republics governed by free men, it reflects a fear of standing armies as tools of oppression and tyranny. If a free people were to remain free in a world where power inevitably corrupts and rulers could not be trusted with standing armies lest they use them against their own people, then the citizens themselves must be ready to defend the nation from all enemies. For the Founding Fathers, educated in the Enlightenment and particularly the study of Greek, Roman, and English political history, there was no greater example of this ideal than the Roman consul Lucius Quintius Cincinnatus. Cincinnatus, whose actual history is shrouded in legend, and in such cases as this, it's the legend that really matters, was a great patrician and general of the 5th century BC Roman Republic. Cincinnatus was one of two consuls of the Republic, the chief magistrates appointed by the Senate to administer the law. In 460 BC, Cincinnatus' faithless son fled Rome as a traitor after leading a plot to prevent the plebeians, the free citizens of Rome, from establishing a constitution intended to protect their rights against the patrician ruling class. Although not implicated directly in his son's treason, Cincinnatus resigned his consulship, paid his sons enormous fines to protect the family name, and was subsequently reduced to poverty, left with only a small farm to support himself. Years later, Rome, not yet the great empire that would rule the Western world, was invaded by her enemies to the east. After one consular army of the Republic was soundly defeated in battle and the others surrounded, the Senate sought out Cincinnatus, now older and humbled by his labors as a farmer. After solemnly asking him to again don his senatorial toga, they appointed him dictator, supreme ruler of Rome in times of crisis, and ordered him back to the capital. After Cincinnatus called on all able-bodied free men of Rome to gather on the field of Mars, the historic assembly ground of Rome's armies, he led this new army to relieve the still besieged consular army. After successfully rescuing that force, Cincinnatus united the two Roman armies and decisively defeated the invading enemy. With Rome's enemies prostrate before him, Cincinnatus offered them mercy so long as they submitted to Rome's rule, which they did. Having saved the Republic and conquered a peace, Cincinnatus resigned his dictatorship, disbanded his army, and returned to his farm, a mere 15 days after having been appointed dictator. A second time, in 439 BC, Cincinnatus was again called out of retirement to save the Republic, this time from the populist, rabble-rousing would-be king Spurius Maelius. He ended that rebellion in short order, and again gave up his dictatorship and sent his army home, returning to his farm. Thus Cincinnatus became a legendary citizen soldier of Rome. Twice granted supreme power, he twice held it for no longer than was absolutely necessary to secure the Republic, and twice returned to the Senate and the people of Rome. His example stood in sharp contrast to the later corrupt political intrigues that consumed Rome during its imperial period, starting with another dictator appointed by the Republic who did not yield power, but instead set in motion the events that led to the creation of the empire, Julius Caesar. For Americans of the Revolutionary generation, George Washington was the embodiment of this ideal, the American Cincinnatus. The stoic, principled Washington, the father of his country, the commanding general of the victorious American Revolutionary Army, the presiding impartial moderator of the Constitutional Convention, and of course the first president of the United States. In the political turmoil following the Revolution, some feared that Washington might use his popularity and power to declare himself king in America, and many openly advocated for him to do so. But of course, he didn't. Some, steeped in the Whig ideologies of the day, feared Washington would run for re-election repeatedly and become de facto president for life. And again, many openly advocated for him to do that as well. But of course, he didn't. Instead, Washington used his considerable reputation and influence to end a very real, looming threat to Republican government, shepherded the drafting and ratification of the Constitution by offering himself as a symbol of national unity, skillfully organized and led the new government while reconciling emerging, deeply opposing political forces, and voluntarily left office after 2 terms, very much mindful that in doing so he was affirming a basic tenet of Republican government, that no man, not even our greatest man, was above the law and the Constitution. All the while, he longed only to sit under his own vine and fig tree, an image from the Old Testament that Washington referenced over 50 times in his private correspondence. When he did retire, after over 40 years of service, and after warning his fellow countrymen of the corrosive dangers of factions and foreign adventures and the absolute necessity of preserving the selfless civic virtue that Republican government rests upon Washington, first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen, returned to Mount Vernon and the life of a country gentleman. He died in 1799, having enjoyed not quite 2 years of his 67 under his own vine and fig tree. During his life, and even more so after his death, Washington was lionized, in Lord Byron's famous phrase, as the Cincinnatus of the West. American poet Philip Freneau authored this couplet when Washington left the army in 1783. Thus he, who Rome's proud legions swayed, returned and sought his silken shade. Like Cincinnatus, Washington had twice held the reins of power and twice relinquished them in favor of the people and Republican government. In 1783, in the aftermath of the Revolution, 2 of Washington's closest aides during the war, General Henry Knox and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Hamilton, organized the Society of the Cincinnati in Washington's honor. All Continental Army and Navy officers of 3 years' service, as well as French officers who had served in America, were invited to join. Over 2,000 men joined the Society in its first membership draft, including many signers of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, several future presidents and other leaders, King Louis XVI of France, and the Marquis de Lafayette. The Society's mission was to preserve the rights so dearly won, to promote the continuing union of the states, and to assist members in need. Washington was named first President General of the Society, a position he held proudly until his death. The Society adopted as its motto, and I'll apologize to Mr. Stump up front here for my Latin, Omnia relicit servare rem publicum, or in English, he left everything to save the Republic. Truly a noble sentiment and a fitting tribute to every citizen soldier since Washington's time. Washington, as Cincinnatus, was honored in other ways by the young nation. By now, I'm sure you've guessed that Cincinnati, Ohio, I'll give a shout out to Charlie Crowder and Gus Hartman, owes its name to Washington and to the Society, as do at least 8 other towns in America, from Missouri to California, 5 U.S. Navy warships, and a submarine. Ulysses S. Grant's favorite horse during the Civil War was named Cincinnatus, the horse he rode to accept Lee's surrender at Appomattox. The Society and the Cincinnati played a leading role in celebrating the Revolutionary generation, raising funds for the Washington Monument and other memorials, and members of the Society were present in virtually every major event in early American history. Throughout, they carried forward the legacy of Washington and Cincinnatus and selfless service to the Republic. Washington and Cincinnatus are powerful reminders of the unwavering and selfless commitment of our citizen soldiers. They remind us, too, of the courage and seriousness of purpose of these men and women to preserve the Republic we all hold so dear, and of the hard work we are charged with, in turn, to maintain it and to ensure that government of the people, by the people, and for the people does not perish from this earth. Washington and Cincinnatus, both proud and humble men, knew well that freedom requires constant vigilance and noble sacrifice. Their examples speak to us still. It's a good lesson for us all on Veterans Day. Thank you.
Let us pray. God, you are the hope of all the ends of the earth, the God of the spirits of all flesh. Hear our humble intercession for all races and families on earth, that you will turn all hearts to yourself. Remove from our minds hatred, prejudice, and contempt for those who are not our own race or color, class, or creed, that departing from everything that estranges and divides, we may by you be brought in unity of spirit in the bond of peace. Amen.